In 1966, Brazil was shaken by a baffling case that still remains one of the most eerie and puzzling mysteries in the history of unsolved deaths. The lead masks case involved the unexplained deaths of two men who were found lifeless in a remote area of the Serra do Cipó Mountains in the state of Minas. On August 20, 1966, they set off on what seemed to be a simple hiking trip into the mountains. They were traveling to a popular tourist spot, but instead of returning like they were supposed to, they ended up being discovered in a shocking state. Their bodies were found near a steep trail, wearing lead masks on their faces and a note that hinted at something far more sinister than just an accident or natural cause. Some believed the men had been part of a secretive group or cult, engaging in a ritual that went tragically wrong. What happened to these men? Why did they die in such a cryptic manner? Why were they seemingly preparing for an event at 4:30 p.m.? These questions have haunted investigators and curious minds for decades, but the answers still remain elusive. The remote location and the cryptic nature of the case suggest that the truth behind the deaths may have been hidden for reasons we may never fully understand. Theories emerged, some more plausible than others, attempting to shed light on what might have happened to Manuel Pereira, da Cruz, and Miguel José Viana. One of the leading theories pointed to a scientific experiment gone wrong. Autopsies showed no signs of poison or any chemicals in their bloodstreams, which led to the theory that their deaths were not caused by drugs or chemicals. Brazil, particularly during the 1960s, had a rich history of spiritualism, with many people practicing different forms of mysticism and the occult. Some believed they had been trying to communicate with extraterrestrial beings, perhaps as part of a UFO cult. The 1960s were a time when UFO sightings and extraterrestrial theories were gaining traction globally, and Brazil was no exception. As time passed, the lead masks case became a fixture in Brazilian folklore, a haunting tale that still sparks debate and intrigue. While no one knows for sure what happened to da Cruz and Viana, their deaths remain a testament to the many unsolved mysteries that continue to baffle us. In the end, the case serves as a chilling reminder of the unknown, and the fact that some mysteries may never be fully understood. Could the lead masks have been used to protect themselves during an attempt to contact beings from another world? The mystery deepened, and as with most unsolved mysteries, the lack of evidence only made the theories grow more fascinating. The cryptic note seemed to hint at some sort of spiritual preparation, and the lead masks could have been worn as a way to shield themselves from unseen forces or to enter into a trance-like state. The remote location of their deaths suggested that they had made their way there deliberately, possibly looking for something. Was it an attempt at discovery? Were they searching for something specific? Or were they just two men with a thirst for adventure who stumbled upon something far darker than they could have imagined? The specific mention of protecting yourself suggested that the men might have been preparing to undergo an experience that they believed required a form of spiritual or physical shield. This revelation left investigators no closer to an explanation, but further confirmed the complexity of the case. What other explanations could there be? Could the men have been involved in the secret experiment, one in which they took a dangerous substance or chemical to test its effects, and ultimately suffered from fatal consequences? Others suggested that they had been experimenting with new drugs or chemicals, possibly part of a scientific endeavor, and something went terribly wrong during their experimentation. In the 1960s, there was a rising interest in experimental drugs and chemical substances, and some speculated that the engineers might have been part of an illicit experiment to test their effects. The note mentioning taking the capsules further fueled this theory, suggesting they might have ingested something that had a deadly reaction, perhaps unknowingly. The lack of clear answers led to widespread public interest, and many began to latch on to their own theories. Some believed that the deaths were linked to paranormal forces or UFO sightings that had been reported in the area. Brazil had a history of unexplained phenomena, and this case seemed to fit right into the narrative of strange occurrences in the country as history. Some even speculated that they were attempting some kind of astral projection or out-of-body experience, attempting to communicate with otherworldly entities, and that the lead masks were used as protection from unknown forces. Regardless of the theory, the case was shrouded in a deep fog of mystery. The discovery left investigators and locals alike in a state of disbelief. What could have led them to this remote area? Why were they wearing lead masks? And what did the note mean? What made their deaths so strange wasn't just the location or the circumstances. The police and forensic experts were unable to definitively determine the cause of death, and the investigation eventually went cold. For years, the case remained one of Brazil's most mysterious unsolved deaths, captivating not only the country's citizens, but also curious minds around the world. The strange details of the case, the lead masks, the cryptic note, and the unexplained deaths continue to haunt anyone who dares to look into the bizarre story of the lead masks case. But the chilling details that surrounded their bodies, lead masks, a cryptic note, and the absence of any obvious cause of death. The story begins with two Brazilian electrical engineers, Manuel Pereira da Cruz and Miguel José Viana. The note, a cryptic piece of writing found beside the body, seemed to suggest they had been part of some kind of mysterious ritual or, perhaps, a secretive mission. The words scrawled on the paper read, For 30 p.m. be at the specified location. Take the capsules. After the effect, protect yourself. Lead is a heavy, toxic material, and it's not something one would typically wear unless there was a specific purpose behind it. The men were not only wearing them, but they were also found in a location where they could easily be seen by others. The masks, combined with the note in their bizarre death, suggested a strange ritual or experience, one that perhaps had something to do with chemical reactions or hallucinogenic drugs. But there was no clear evidence to explain why they had chosen to wear them. The note's wording was vague, but it left open the possibility of something far deeper than just a hiking accident. Had they been involved in something dangerous, something that perhaps led to their untimely demise? Were they victims of some kind of scientific experiment, or were they caught in a dangerous occult practice? Adding to the mystery were the lead masks themselves. Theories about the cause of death began to surface quickly, but none were proven. The lead masks and note were left behind as the only clues to the bizarre deaths, and they only seemed to complicate the investigation. The strange nature of the deaths sparked a media frenzy in Brazil, with journalists and investigators alike speculating on what had truly occurred. Despite the intense investigations that followed, there was no conclusive evidence to explain what happened to D.A. Cruz and Viana. As the years went by, the lead masks case began to take on a life of its own. Some believed that they were using the lead masks as a form of protection against the harmful chemicals or radiation they were working with. However, no toxic substances were ever found in their systems. The second theory that gained traction was the idea of the men being involved in a religious or occult ritual. While there was no direct evidence that the men were involved in any form of spiritualism or occult practices, the theory persisted. The more likely possibility, however, lies in the fact that the engineers were just two ordinary men caught up in something extraordinary and dangerous. Despite the many theories, the true cause of their deaths remains a mystery to this day.